McLaren's meltdown in Baku. This is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and I'm bringing you the full roundup of the 2025 Azerbaijan Grand Prix from Baku, or as McLaren might prefer, the Grand Prix of what were they thinking? Hit the subscribe and the bell button now and join the community. Let's start with qualifying. The chaos before the calm. If Baku is the city of wins, qualifying was a full-blown cyclone. 6 red flags. Yep, 6. Scattered the running order like a dropped deck of cards. And here's a blow-by-blow of who kissed the walls, why it happened, and how Max Verstappen still walked away with pole. So this is the session overview. 20th of September, Saturday, venue, Baku City Circuit, Q1 to Q3. Weather, gusty with a brief sprinkle of rain. Grip evolution, it yo-yoed. Stoppages, record 6 red flags across Q1 to Q3. So what was your top 10 in qualifying? Max Verstappen P1, Carlos Sainz P2, Liam Lawson P3, Kimi Antonelli P4, George Russell P5, Yuki Tsunoda P6, Lando Norris P7, Isaac Hadjar P8, Oscar Piastri P9, and Charles Leclerc P10. But who crashed in qualifying? Here's all 6 red flags. So, incident number 1, Alexander Albon. In Q1, turn 1, he clipped the inside wall at turn 1 on an early flying lap and he broke the front left steering arm, parked at the pit exit. Red flag number 1. So red flag number 2, who was that? That was Nico Hulkenberg. Q1, turn 4, he locked the front and slid straight on into the Tech Pro, limped back without a front wing. That was your red flag number 2. Red flag number 3, no surprise here, Franco Colapinto, Q1, turn 4, caught out as Gasly had gone too quickly and he bailed down the escape road ahead. He hit the rear on the wall, he bounced around, nose straight into it, heavy barrier repair. Red flag number 3. Red flag number 4, this was Oliver Behrman, Q2, exit turn 2. His rear stepped out on the exit, he kissed the wall quite lightly but enough to break the track rod and he stopped on circuit. And there's your red flag number 4. And what about red flag number 5? Of course, it's the Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc. In Q3, turn 15, locked the left front and went head on into the Tech Pro. And that was his bid for a 5th straight Baku pole, but it was ended right there. And then red flag number 6. This is the one that surprised most people. Oscar Piastri, Q3, turn 3, missed the turn 3 apex and met the outside wall. That was a final red flag. It froze all the times, leaving him P9. And a little bit of a bonus drama for you. Esteban Ocon was disqualified from qualifying after his rear wing failed the FIA deflection test, forcing him to start last. Now, Baku gave us 6 red flags. That's not qualifying. That's a person you don't want to date. Leclerc's love affair with Baku poles ended like a rom-com twist, and Piastri's Q3 had the structural integrity of a paper straw. Now, meanwhile, Verstappen strolled through the chaos like a man who'd seen this movie before, which brings us on to the race day, the Grand Prix, the McLaren mishaps. Wow. What happened there? So, lights out, we're off, and Verstappen held the lead from the get-go. Steady, calm, like that one friend who always wins at Mario Kart. The trouble for McLaren came almost immediately. Piastri jumped the start, then hit the anti-stall. He ended up dead last from P9 and then locked up into turn 5 and crashed out. Norris got stuck in traffic, suffered a slow pit stop again and could only manage P7. We will talk more about both McLaren drivers in just a minute. And then up front, Max Verstappen was majestic. Pole, win, fastest lap, every lap led. It was a grand slam for him. George Russell delivered P2 for Mercedes despite not feeling very well. We'll have to cover that in a minute as well. And Carlos Sainz scored Williams' first podium since 2021. So, wow, There was a lot going on, wasn't there, guys? Great. I'm going to come to the chat. Great team in the chat. Destroy Television. Hey, hey. Gemma, hello. So many red flags. The staff in the paddocks are nicknamed it the carnival. Destroy Television. I nearly spit on my coffee on the second red flag. By the third, I just stopped drinking. Brilliant. And Eric, Max was amazing to watch. Yeah, he was. He was. But the McLaren meltdown. We got to start with Oscar. So Oscar went in to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix with a 31-point lead over Lando and a 94-point lead over Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship. You know, he should have been feeling pretty darn good about things. Then it's been a catalogue of errors from him, which put the McLaren in the wall in Q3, turn 3, as he qualified P9. And then as for the race, what can I say? He jumps the start, totally his fault. Hits the anti-stall, which basically stops the car on the grid, and he ends up at the back in P20. And then maybe it's frustration, maybe it's excitement, maybe he's just going crazy inside that helmet of his. Going into turn 5, lap 1, he is absolutely going too quick in the dirty air and bins it. And he was the only driver not to finish the Grand Prix. So this is, to be fair, uncharacteristic of Oscar. You know, he has been pretty fantastic. You know, he's finished his last 44 Grand Prix. He's had some minor errors, like his penalty at Silverstone, which is still up for debate, to be honest. But overall, very cool, calm, and collected. So what happened? Is this crack because he's under pressure of leading the World Drivers' Championship? Is he susceptible to, like, mountain pressure? Or was it just a bad day at the office? I want you guys to let me know in the chat. It's gonna be debatable because I do rate Oscar Piastri, and this was uncharacteristic like performance of him to make multiple errors. And really, I can only guess that he just lost his head with that start. He had a terrible qualifying. He's in P9. He jumps the start. Then he hits the anti-stall. The whole grid passes him and he's right at the back. And maybe he's just absolutely lost his head. And you could see from the over helicopter shot, guns it into turn 5 way too quickly, way too hot. There's no way he was going to hold. And yeah, straight into the wall. Crazy times from Oscar Piastri. But it gets worse for McLaren, doesn't it? Because it's not just Piastri. I mean, we've got to look at Lando Norris. I mean, you see, it's Lando that really messed up an open goal here, right? He knows Oscar is out on lap 1, and every point he scores will narrow the gap to Oscar in the World Drivers' Championship. And in qualifying, he put the McLaren P7, you know, and the car had way more pace than that. But I guess Lando just fluffed his lines a little in qualifying. But then it was a lackluster fight in the Grand Prix that really baffled me. He got stuck in the DRS train behind Yuki, and he just couldn't get past. And he had to settle for P7. And then we had the awful pit stop that Lando had. You know, at Monza, it was the front left tyre gun problem. And in Baku, it was the front right gun costing him 2 seconds. Now, those 2 seconds were vital because his pit stop was over 4 seconds. And that stop happened after a nearly 40-lap stint on the medium tyres. Now, what was that about? McLaren gambling on another safety car, which never came, to try and get a cheap pit stop. But it was just like a catalogue of bad choices and team errors. And I have to say it, from Lando, just like a lack of grit, really, from him. I didn't see any fight. He had this open goal to score points against Oscar. He knew Oscar was out. And the thing is, he knew Oscar was out of qualifying as well. And even then, he couldn't find a lap where Max Verstappen finds his last lap of Q3 and he puts it on pole. And Lando couldn't find a lap. So Oscar got away with it, really. Lando only gains 6 points. Oscar still has a 25-point lead over him. But Max gained a further 25 points on Oscar. Look, it's a long shot, but can Supermax make up the 69 points he is behind Oscar before the end of the season? I mean, it would take some more McLaren mishaps for that to happen, for sure. But it could happen. If what we're looking at now, I mean, it could happen. You know, Max is stripping out. You know, he strips out, I think it's over 30 points in 3 races. Eric says, I would not doubt Max ever. And that's the thing, you can't, because that Red Bull car is looking so much better. Brand new floor, new brake ducting. So he's got cooling, extra cooling on the brakes, a new floor, which is helping aero. I mean, that Red Bull, I mean, that's 2 races on the trot where it's looked fantastic. It's like a different car. A lower downforce track, as we know. Not as low downforce as Monza, but still. And you do have that tight twisty bit through the second sector going through the old town there in Baku. So, yeah, that Red Bull really showing some balance for the first time. Eric says, crazy a few weeks ago, Red Bull was a disaster. McLaren was unstoppable. And Ferrari had the best engine for 2026. I know. Oh, and now reverse all of that. Reverse all of that. Destroy Television says, this was an awesome weekend for memes. Yes, it was. I knew the second they showed the shot of Piastri just sitting at the corner with his phone, that would be a meme. And he did, didn't he? So Piastri, lap 1, bins his car, and then sits pretty much the whole race at that corner in some little, almost look like a pen where there's a couple of seats, watching the Grand Prix on one of the marshals' phones. I mean, yeah, it was just a comedy of errors for McLaren. But I'm interested, if you're watching this on replay, get in the chat and tell me your opinion on what happened at McLaren. Have McLaren lost their bottle? Did Lando bottle it? Did Piastri bottle it? Did the pressure get to him? What do you think happened? Why was it such a terrible performance from McLaren? Or do you just think it's just a bad weekend at the office and we're not going to see that in Singapore? And also, have your comments on Max Verstappen. Is he back? Are we going to see him get a run of wins now? Next 7 races, wins the next 7 races. That will really change things in the Drivers' World Championship. It's all looking like it could get very exciting. But whilst we're talking about Max Verstappen, we do have to do the right thing, which is, of course, congratulate our winner of Baku. For the Red Bull, Max Verstappen, superb drive, masterclass again. That Red Bull finding some extra pace with its Monza new floor and brake ducting, seemingly improving the car significantly. Like, it was incredible drive. And for him to do it back-to-back Grand Prix, it makes me think that the Red Bull team really have made a big jump with that car, because we also have to factor in Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda qualified P6. I think that's a season best for him. Plus, he managed to keep Lando Norris behind him, finishing P6 as well, with Lando Norris P7. So Yuki Tsunoda really did well this Grand Prix. The funny thing is with Yuki is every time he puts in a reasonable performance for Red Bull, he's outshone by the performance from Max. So Max then puts it on pole, wins the race with ease. So Yuki, it doesn't look as good for Yuki yet again. But on that, Liam Lawson, outstanding, special mention for him, qualified P3 in the Racing Bulls. And I thought he drove a very solid race. He brought the car home P5. Only Kimi Antonelli got past him, George Russell got past him, the 2 Mercedes passed him, but he did manage to keep Yuki Tsunoda behind him, and obviously that kept Lando Norris behind him. So I have to say, Liam Lawson, special mention. You've done yourself a lot of favours in your job application for that Racing Bull seat for next year. Oh, and a little bit of news on that. A little bit of news on what's going on in the Red Bulls camp. So I've been banging on about the fact that Yuki's lost his drive at Red Bull, and he's not going to get a drive at Racing Bulls. Well, the tide turned last week with Laurent Mekies saying, actually, we could see Yuki in a Racing Bulls seat. And he said that it's going to be Liam Lawson or Yuki Tsunoda fighting it out for the Racing Bulls seat because Arvid Lindblad was a shoo-in. He's going to get promoted. Haha. However, Alan Permane publicly said in his interview with Sky F1, he said that because of the new regulations, the major regulation change in F1 next year, we don't really know what the cars are going to be like, who's going to be quick, who isn't. He feels that it wouldn't be necessarily the right time to promote Arvid Lindblad from F2 into F1. And also, maybe he's seen how Kimi Antonelli's done. Because he's only 18, Arvid Lindblad. And also, his pace has dropped off in the F2 car. So, what does that mean for Racing Bulls? The most likely outcome now, as we talk about it today, is your Racing Bulls drivers for 2026 will be Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, with Isaac Hadjar and Max Verstappen in your main Red Bull team. So there you go. A little bit of Formula One news coming at you from that Grand Prix. And you're right, Eric. Max rocked it. It was a masterclass, an absolute masterclass. But did you think I would forget my driver of the day? I hope you agree with this. Out bloody standing. Didn't think I'd forget, did you? Carlos Sainz. I am so pleased for him and Williams. P2 in qualifying. Yeah, he got a little bit of luck with the red flags and the weather change and the little bit of rain that came down and made the track a little bit slippier. But honestly, I'm so pleased for him. P2 in qualifying and P3 in the race. Got himself a podium. You know, he just did a great job. And you've also got to factor in that he got that. He did get the excuse me, that podium. Excuse me. But he drove a solid race. He really didn't put a foot wrong. You know, and he had suffered, excuse me, little sip of water before I choked to death. I mean, he has suffered with some bad luck this year. And that result will do him the world of good and the team the world of good. Now, obviously, he took 15 points, which has taken his total to 31 points in the Drivers' Championship and puts him P12 when he was P18. So I'm so pleased for Carlos Sainz. It's really going to help kick on his career. Yeah, did you say a little water? Yes, Eric, a little water. Gemma says I predicted it. You did, Gemma, in the preview show when we said who's going to be who's going to win the Grand Prix. You went with Max Verstappen, didn't you? You were right. I didn't. I went for Oscar Piastri. How wrong was I? I think, who did Eric go for? I can't remember who Eric chose, but I was thinking McLaren all the way. So yeah, Gemma, you did. Yeah, I was a doubter, Gemma. Yeah, you nailed it. Max Verstappen. When we get to Singapore, though, we'll see how we get on. Oh, Eric said Max as well. Just me, then. Was I the only idiot? Was I the only one that got it wrong? I also said my driver of the day. I said, who did I say was going to be my driver of the day? Charles Leclerc. How wrong was I? And nobody said Carlos Sainz, though, did they? Nobody said him. So yeah, absolutely brilliant stuff from Carlos. But what do you think, guys, in the chat? So the real question is, so this entire meltdown from McLaren, I really wanted to just talk about Piastri's mindset. Oh, we will talk about Ferrari. Actually, do you know what? You're right. Let's talk about Ferrari. So Ferrari in qualifying. So FP1, FP2, FP3, they looked really, really quick, didn't they? Hamilton, fastest of the two Ferraris in FP2. FP3 was only a 10th behind Leclerc. Both cars looked super, super on it. And then in qualifying, Hamilton, just because of the red flags and the stoppages, he couldn't get a lap in. So in Q2, when he was his his tyre choice, he was gone onto the hard tyre, which was a slower tyre. The medium tyre was quicker. So Hamilton said because he was on the wrong tyre at the wrong time, he was unable to put a quick lap in Q2. But Leclerc put a quick lap in, didn't he? I think he was 141 something, which was quick. And then in Q3, he was on the medium tyre, which was the right tyre, where you want to put in a quick lap. And then overcooked it. Just overcooked it. Now, I don't know whether it's because getting the tyre temperatures up was a very difficult thing to do with the start-stops because of all those red flags. Maybe that played into it a little bit. But it doesn't take away from the race performance, because on track, the Ferraris were average, weren't they? I mean, Leclerc went on the medium tyre first. So for his second stint, after a one-stop strategy, he was on the hards, whereas Lewis Hamilton was on the hard tyre first. So he was on the medium tyre for the second stint, which meant that Hamilton effectively had the quicker car, which was why the team orders came into play, where Leclerc had to let Hamilton pass to try and get past that DRS train with Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, which they're all behind Liam Lawson. But unfortunately, Hamilton did go, Leclerc let him past. Hamilton then was on the gearbox of Lando, but unable to make a move. It was just this DRS train. They all had DRS, which is the problem with tracks that are difficult to overtake. And I hope that problem next season will not be a problem, because if at the moment when you get a DRS zone and everyone's DRS is opened, well, then obviously there's no benefit, is it? Because all the cars, it's only the car at the front that doesn't get DRS in that train. But if the track's narrow, you're not getting past him anyway. So, but everyone's in the same boat. The car, the benefit of DRS is negated if you've all got DRS. Now, next year, because of the 50% electrification, and they've got literally a button that they press to have that instant increase in horsepower and from the battery, if they do allow the drivers to use that at will, we won't necessarily have that same issue, because you have to recharge your battery. So if you've got no battery power, there's no battery power, right? So it's going to be harder to manage that. So I think next year, because they've got the boost button and managing 50% of that electrification, hopefully we won't have a DRS train that goes round and round and round. We will be able to see drivers apply the boost button to overtake as they see fit, and the driver in front will have to defend as they see fit, and it'll be less predictable when that extra horsepower is available to the driver. And I think hopefully that will solve that problem. But that was really it with Ferrari. It was really a non-event, wasn't it? They finished Hamilton 8th, Leclerc 9th. Not really, just a nothing Grand Prix for those guys. But it was a shame, because in practice they actually looked pretty good. But I think it was Eric that was saying, we think that Ferrari in free practice have all the beans. They have everything turned on. Whereas perhaps like McLaren, Red Bull, they've probably got the settings turned down, and they're sort of sandbagging until we get to qualifying. Whereas maybe Ferrari are trying to see where the limits are on their car in practice to help them do this, set up their car for qualifying. And I don't think necessarily McLaren play that game or Red Bull play that game. I think Max always seems to pull out an uber quick qualifying time with a car that seems to be a brand new car compared to earlier than in the weekend. It astonishes me how Max all of a sudden finds a second in a lap where we hadn't seen that pace for the whole weekend. So my guess is that Max Verstappen is the king of sandbagging, but he always manages to pull out a super quick lap, doesn't he? But that's my take on the Ferrari situation. But for Singapore, we'll see. Here's my takeaway that's positive about from the Ferrari situation. I'm going to tell you my positive from Ferrari this weekend. It's the fact, and it's positive for Lewis Hamilton, the fact that Lewis seems to have narrowed the gap between him and Charles Leclerc to almost nothing, where you actually think that Lewis could be quicker than Charles Leclerc, I think is a good thing. I think that's the good takeaway about Ferrari, is that we've seen Lewis almost be on par with Charles Leclerc in Baku. And Baku is obviously a Charles Leclerc favoured circuit, right? 4 consecutive poles. You can't argue with that. So that's what I think is my positive takeaway for Ferrari. But the real thing for me is I don't know what the hell is going on at McLaren. Because let's just talk about McLaren for a second. That's 2 consecutive Grand Prix where Lando Norris has had awful pit stops with tyre gun issues, like with pit stops that are over 4 seconds. Now, that pit stop in Baku, where he lost at least 2 seconds, cost him a minimum of 1 place. He would have gained track position over Yuki Tsunoda, and he would have been then challenging Liam Lawson. It could have really cost him 2 spots. But then Lando wasn't really on his game. I don't think Lando was driving anywhere near aggressive enough. He had an open goal to narrow that gap between him and Oscar Piastri, and he didn't take it. He didn't take it in qualifying when he knew Piastri was out, and he didn't take it in the Grand Prix. Now, could you imagine anyone else in a world title fight being so lackluster under those circumstances? I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just don't think it was good enough from Lando Norris. We all know that Oscar Piastri made some howling errors, not his weekend. And that's the other big question. Okay, Destroyed Television says, sorry to go off topic. Did I hear during the race that Hadjar is going to Red Bull in 26? Is this just a rumour at the moment? No, Hadjar is going to... I can give you the full lowdown on that. Yeah, next year, Red Bull drivers will be Max Verstappen, Isaac Hadjar. They haven't officially announced it in the press, but that is what's happening. Yeah, basically, that the real news, though, is for Racing Bulls, because we've been saying all week that Yuki Tsunoda versus Liam Lawson for the Racing Bulls seat, because Arvid Lindblad was going to be a shoe-in and was going to be driving for Racing Bulls next year. But Alan Permain, principal over at Racing Bulls, publicly said he's not sure it'd be a good idea to promote Arvid Lindblad next year because the cars are brand new, totally new platform, 2026 regulations. No one knows who's going to be quick and who isn't. And Arvid Lindblad's only 18. He thinks it would be a mistake to promote that F2 driver, and maybe another year in F2 is what he needs. So really what we might see now is Racing Bulls with Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, which would be sensible when you look at their performance in Baku. Both drivers absolutely performing very, very well. Liam Lawson to qualify P3, Yuki P6, and then to finish Liam Lawson P5 and Yuki P6 was great results for both of those drivers. They have done themselves many favours in their bid to secure a drive for 2026. And yes, Eric, you're absolutely right. George Russell, let me tell you what, the George Russell story is fantastic. So George Russell, let's talk about his performance. Great. P2, solid. Kimi Antonelli, P4, brilliant. You know, I thought Kimi Antonelli could have been my dipstick of the day, but no, Kimi Antonelli, after all the pressure he was under, put in a proper shift. Qualified well, qualified P4, out-qualified George Russell in P5, and then didn't put a foot wrong in the race, really. Kimi Antonelli finished P4. It's a decent result for him. George Russell going from P5 to P2 is fantastic. Again, why has he not got his contract? He's in the top 3 drivers on the grid, and you're treating him like a rookie. Give him what he wants. Give him a reward. He deserves it. Absolutely deserves it. And apparently, George Russell was not well. Bit like me with his man flu. But did you notice George Russell didn't do one media engagement throughout the whole weekend? Didn't do any media Friday, Saturday, minimal on Sunday, all because he didn't want to answer questions about his contract, right? So he had a properly under the radar weekend, and then George Russell goes and puts in a solid drive to get P2. So yeah, absolutely, he does deserve credit. George Russell, he did well, and I'm backing George Russell because he deserves to get his contract sorted. And do you know what? If you're only going to give him 1 year, yes, reduce his amount of press commitments and give him more money. You know, match Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. Give him more money if you're only going to give him a year. He's a good driver. He's if it wasn't for Max Verstappen, he'd be competing for the best driver on the grid. The thing about George, though, is the problem with George Russell is he's just not really well liked, is he? He sort of annoys people. That's the thing about George. People just find him like annoying. I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about him that people find so annoying. I think it's because they think he's a bit vanilla, but he is quite dry. But he is actually quite funny at times, George Russell. And I think I actually quite like him. I find him quite amusing in that dry sort of way. He's I don't know. My girl calls Russell a baby. Is that right, Destroy Television? I don't know why it is. But he is the consummate professional. Do you know what I think it is? I'll tell you what it is about George Russell, the reason why people don't like him. He's the head of the Drivers Association for a start. He's like the school hall monitor or the school prefect, who is basically like, he'd grass you up for, being naughty at school. And that's what George Russell's got, a bit of school prefect about him, like head boy. Yeah, do you know what I mean? He's got something like that about him, and people find it grating, is what I think. And you just imagine him being head boy at school, or a school prefect that grassed everybody up for doing naughty stuff. Yeah, teacher's pet, Eric. Exactly. He's got that about him, hasn't he? And like I said, but he's probably a really great guy. And he's in the drivers. Like I said, he's the head of the Drivers Association. And he's fighting for the drivers to have more safety, and he's thinking of them. But he's probably a really good guy. But yeah, there's something about him. There's something about him that people don't like. And I don't know why. I'm rooting for him. He does deserve to have his contract sorted. Like, he does. Like, pay him his money. Reward him. He has done better than that Mercedes should have done this season. It's simple. He's the kind who says microwave in the unironic way. That's very specific, Gemma. He's the kind who says microwave in the unironic way. He might be. He might be. But that is very specific, Gemma, about George Russell. Nigella Lawson. Oh, he's got that. He's got a bit of Nigella Lawson about him. Oh, we can always get the chat for comedy. But yeah, I hope they do sort it out. But yeah, it was a good. It was almost like the most eventful, non-eventful Grand Prix I've ever seen. Qualifying was so eventful. I was expecting more than one safety car in the race, obviously. And for the only DNF to be your World Driver Championship leader, Oscar Piastri, I was like, how? How can that be? Because when you think about Lando Norris's strategy with McLaren, to go nearly 40 laps on medium tyres, which should never be a thing, by the way. You should never be able to do like nearly 40 laps of a 51 lap race on medium tyres. That's not right. But he was just banking on there being another safety car, But if you'd watched qualifying and how many people put it in the wall, you'd think there's definitely going to be another racing incident where we're going to get a safety car. And it just didn't happen. So we just ended up with this DRS train of cars going round and round, and Max Verstappen having the time of his life. Really, it was easy for him. Masterclass. Just, extended his lead over Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson right from the get-go. And the good thing for him, Max really had, he had Carlos Sainz, Liam Lawson, Kimi Antonelli and George Russell and Yuki Tsunoda all the way between him and Lando Norris. So it couldn't have worked out better for Max Verstappen. Oh, so Gemma's saying, no, like Nigella Lawson said, microwave. I don't know, how did she say it? I need to look this up, do I? Yeah, anyone watch Max run on the Nürburgring? Yeah, it's awesome. He's going to do the 24 hours at the Nürburgring, isn't he? I think that's the thing he's going to do next season. That's why he's doing all of his GT license, isn't it? Because he's going to do the 24-hour race, the Nürburgring. I mean, I wouldn't mind having a go at that myself. Does he need another driver? I fancy that. I fancy 24 hours on Nürburgring. Best track in the world. It was brilliant when F1 was there back in the day, in the 80s. Brilliant track. Absolutely brilliant. So yeah, it was one of those Grand Prix, wasn't it? Super eventful in qualifying, and then just so surprisingly almost, a non-event for the actual Grand Prix. So it was good. I enjoyed it, and I did a watch long actually for every step of the Grand Prix this weekend. I did a watch long for FP1, FP2, FP3, qualifying, and the race, and we had a lot of fun actually. It was good. It was a good crack. So I'm going to do them again for Singapore. I'll start with practice all the way through, and if you're around, jump on those. It just means that we can chat while the action's happening. Qualifying was long though, I'll tell you that. I thought it was going to be an hour. We were on for like 2.5 hours because of all the red flags. It was it was very funny. So it was good. I'm going to go back to the chat. Gemma, make a flask of Earl Grey to keep you fueled. Oh, what's that? What, for the watch-alongs? Yeah, yeah, they are long. I'm having a little. Do you know what? I'm having a little Earl Grey now. I've got a terribly sore throat. I'm not moaning though. I love doing this. But I'm just on the back end of man flu. Maybe that's what was wrong with OscarPiastri and the whole McLaren team. Maybe they all had a dose of man flu. I wonder what that pit crew member's thinking after, the right front tyre gun messed up again, and it was the other guy in Monza in the left front tyre gun. I mean, what do you've got to look at your pit crew, and it's always Lando. Someone's in trouble for that now, surely. Somebody's got to be in trouble for that. But anyway, so Baku punishes mistakes, and McLaren made plenty. Piastri admitted it wasn't his finest hour. Norris missed an open goal in gaining ground in the Drivers' Championship fight, and Verstappen gains momentum in the title race. Williams fans, and they got a reason to smile. Thank you for watching F1 Grandstand. Please like, comment, join the community, subscribe and hit the bell so you can keep up to date. It makes a huge difference to the success of the channel, and I am so grateful to each and every one of you. Thanks to all of you that have been in the chat. Gemma, Eric, Destroy Television, you've all been a pleasure. I will see you all tomorrow, same time. I need a rest after that. Ta-ta.